Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, welcome back to another Monster Hunter video. Only today we are talking about Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. So I'm super excited to jump back in and hopefully you guys are too. Of course, thanks to Monster Hunter World, there are now so many more hunters out there, and while I'm sure many of you playing GU will be importing your Generation save file, I imagine there's also a good number of you starting fresh now that you've discovered the hunter within. If that's you, then it's important to understand that while at the core, Generations and World are the same game. You hunt monsters, you make badass armor and weapons, and you repeat this process over and over. The two games are also very different. Generations is an older game, so many of the quality of life additions you've gotten used to in World won't be present, but that doesn't mean to say that it's worse. On the contrary, Generations Ultimate is a fantastic game, and provided you go in knowing what to expect, you're going to have a great time. So with that being said, in this video, I'm going to go over 12 ways that Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is different to World, so that you know what you're diving into later this month. Of course, once the game launches, I'll have a ton more content for you to enjoy, tips, guides, a new selection of weapon tutorials and more, so if you don't want to miss any of that, then make sure you're subscribed and also click that bell icon so you can turn on notifications. Additionally, we kicked off a new giveaway this week for our final God of War PS4 Pro. The winner of the last one was announced and contacted via Twitter, so thanks to those of you guys that entered, but we now have one more to give away, this time in conjunction with the Arekkz Gaming Twitch team. If you want to be in with a chance to win, then click that link in the description box down below to enter and follow the instructions on the Gleam page. Now, let's get started. First up, quests. The quest structure in GU is a little different to World. In World, every quest can be done both solo or in multiplayer, and the general flow is a lot more streamlined. Pretty much all your quests will have you hunting a monster or a group of smaller monsters, but in GU there's a ton more quests, and they're also split into single player and multiplayer. There are 4 villages in GU, but irrespective of which one you visit, the quest lady in this portion of the map is for your offline quests. These are quests you do alone, and you can't party up with other people for these. Meanwhile, if you venture into here, the online or the multiplayer hub, then these are quests that can be done in multiplayer if you wish. Much like World, you can still opt to do them solo if you want, but this is where multiplayer factors in. Additionally, there are a lot more filler quests, so to speak. In World, the monotonous tasks such as gathering honey, mushrooms, bugs, etc. were presented as bounties. Meanwhile, in GU, they are standalone quests. You encounter these much less the further you progress, but some of the quests will simply have you gathering X number of a particular item or material. Keep in mind, if you want, the second you start the game, you can go straight online and play with other people, but there is value in completing the offline quests since they too unlock things. More quests, food at the canteen, etc. Then moving on from there, we have map zones. In World, maps are vast, packed full of life, and you can seamlessly explore the entire area. Meanwhile, in Generations Ultimate, maps are a little more barren, and they're split into zones. This is a tradition for the Monster Hunter series, and is something that World changed. But even so, you can still see remnants of it when inspecting the map, and seeing that different areas are still divided into numbered zones. The difference in GU is that these zones will actually see you load in between them. You cross the boundary and you load into the next zone. Load times are quick, but it means that each encounter or battle is condensed into that one small area. On one side, sure, it'll be sad to see the huge sprawling and lively maps go, but on the flip side, what this does do is make hunts less about the environment and more about the battle between you and the monster. There's nowhere to hide, no stealth, no rocks to drop on their heads, it's just you and the monster. That being said, loading zones can also help in times. If things get hectic or you're about to die, jumping into another zone will separate you and the monster, giving you a chance to heal before you go back. And speaking of healing, that brings me on to the next point. Learn to heal at the right time. In World, you can just run around and drink your potions in the process. Sure, if you get hit, that cancels the animation and you lose your potion, but still, you have the freedom to move. In GU, you have the Monster Hunter Flex. After consuming an item, you perform this little flex animation, and while this is happening, you are rooted to the spot, unable to move. So healing in GU is something you have to time. Don't just drink a potion the second you need to heal, wait to ensure you're not going to get hit in the process. This also applies to other items you consume too. You need to account for the flex. Armor skills like speed eating can naturally lessen this time, but regardless, this is something you have to account for. Additionally, something else you need to get used to doing is pre-quest preparation. In World, you can eat before you go on a quest. Fill your item bag, pick your armor set and weapon, and then if you change your mind or run out of items in the quest, you can return to the camp and restock or change equipment. In GU, that's not possible. If you forget to eat before you go on a quest, there's no canteen at the camp. If you forget to fill your item bag, there's no tent you can go in to access your items from base. And if you pick the wrong weapon or the wrong armor set, you can't change it during the quest. All preparation has to be done before the quest. If you run out of items, tough, you better not get hit. That being said, that does make the blue supply box at base that much more useful. People tend to ignore it in World, but in older games, it was genuinely a useful thing to use given your limited supplies. Then moving on from there, we have tracking. Tracking is different in GU. In World, you load into the map, collect footprints, and then your scout flies lead you in the direction of the monster. In GU, there are no scout flies. In time, you'll begin to learn where the monsters typically spawn, but when starting out, you'll wander around the map, loading into the different zones, searching for it until you find it. When you do find it, this is where paintballs come in. Paintballs are how you track monsters. You throw it, and quite simply, it applies paint to the monster, and you can then see it on the map. So if it leaves the area, you can follow the dots. The paintball does wear off over time, so if you take too long, you'll need to reapply it, and some monsters that burrow can remove the paint, but generally speaking, this is how it will go. Roam the map, looking around, paintball it when you find it, and then hunt. There are a couple of additional things. An item called Psycho Serum can show you the location of a monster. There's also an armor skill that will display it on the map, and if you see a hot air balloon in the sky, performing a wave gesture at it will reveal the monster briefly on the map, but this only works once per quest. Next up, gathering. Gathering is different in GU. In World, it's fast, fluid, and a lot of the time you can do it whilst moving. You run past honey and you grab it, pass by some herbs or a bitter bug and simply swipe it and put it in your pocket. But in GU, that's again not possible. Gathering items, whether that be honey, bones, herbs, mushrooms, ores, or the like, will again see you routed to the spot. You'll typically crouch down on the ground to gather, unless you're mining, in which case you perform the familiar mining animation. Since this is slower, it's something you'll have to do a little bit more deliberately than something you do in passing. Additionally, mining ores needs pickaxes and catching bugs needs bug nets. These are items you have to buy and carry with you in your bag. World lets you gather without needing to actually bring those items, but GU does not. Additionally, you can get better versions of them later, and that's important because these items can also break. Mine enough and your pickaxe can break, as too can your bug net, so always carry a full stack if you intend to farm items whilst out on a quest. Another thing you want to keep in mind when on a quest is monster aggro. In World, a lot of the time monsters will simply walk by you until you attack them and threaten their existence. This means it's possible to run by them if you want to do something more important. In GU, monsters will attack you the second you enter the same area as them. Sure, you can crouch and perhaps sneak a little bit closer, but the idea behind this in World was that the monsters lived their own lives in the ecosystem and were quite happy going about their own business. But here it's much simpler. You enter the area, the monster doesn't like you, and you better be ready to fight. There are also no turf wars either, so if you happen to be in a situation where there are two monsters in the same area, well, good luck. Now, we've spoken a lot about the differences out in the world, but now let's take a step back and look at some of the underlying systems. First up, armor skills. The armor skill system changed drastically in Monster Hunter World. You equip a piece of gear, and instantly you gain the benefits of the skill that is on that piece of armor. Of course, you can stack multiple of the same skill to enhance the benefits, for example, attack boost 1 to attack boost 7, but regardless, every point yields benefit. In GU, and all Monster Hunter games before that, armor skills work around a point threshold. Let's take attack boost as an example. Equipping a piece of gear with a single point and attack boost will do nothing. In fact, you can see here, this is the armor skill list table. Anything grayed out below the line is an inactive skill. Meanwhile, if it's white and above the line, it's active. In order for a skill to be active, it must have 10 points or above. So in the case of attack boost, 10 points would equate to attack boost small. And then following that, there are additional thresholds, 15 points, 20 points, 25 points, etc. It varies based on the skill. Individual armor pieces usually carry more points or values, but in order to activate the skill, you have to stack enough points. You can also use decorations to fill in the additional points, and charms too. Speaking of which, decorations can be crafted in GU, it's charms that are random drops instead. That ultimately gives you much greater control, and leaves much less up to RNG. Missing a good charm can still hinder your build, but in truth, it's far less debilitating than not having a whole slew of decorations like in World. Additionally, GU has negative skills too. Some armor will come with minus points, and if you hit the negative threshold, you can have bad skills activate as well. So part of the mix set game can also be about offsetting those bad skills. But since it works around a threshold again, if you had say negative 10 points, putting in a single decoration to push that to negative 9 would see the skill deactivate. So while this old system is different and perhaps a tad more complex, it ultimately allows for much greater variety and more interesting mix set options. Something else that's different about armor are the actual armor sets themselves. In World, you have alpha and beta sets, which largely look very similar, and the main difference being that one typically has more skills while the other has more slots. In GU, and by extension all Monster Hunter games prior to World, armor sets are instead divided into BLADEMASTER and Gunner sets. If you use a BLADEMASTER weapon, i.e. a melee weapon, you use BLADEMASTER gear. This typically carries a little more defense, and skills are melee weapon focused. Meanwhile, if you want to use a ranged weapon, bowgun or bow, you buy Gunner armor. Slightly less defense, but Gunner focused skills. This is cool because Blademaster and Gunner sets have unique designs, but it does mean you have to be a little bit more committed when crafting your gear. See, if you have a melee weapon, you cannot wear Gunner armor, and if you have a ranged weapon, you cannot wear Blademaster armor. So if you decide partway through you feel like switching from range to melee or vice versa, you have to ensure you have a new armor set to wear. However, that does also mean a ton more variety. Generations Ultimate already has infinitely more armor sets and weapons when compared to Monster Hunter World. Weapon designs are unique, even the basic starter items look interesting, high rank and G rank sets are different, you have deviant armor sets, deviant weapons, and on top of that, you have Transmog. Generations Ultimate in G rank will allow you to take the appearance of one piece of armor and the stats of another and combine them. World gave us layered armor, but GU has a genuine transmog system, so endgame suddenly got much more exciting. Not only do you have tons of gear to choose from, you are also ultimately in complete control of how your hunter looks. Now, when it comes to combat, the weapons you know from World will be a little different. At their core, they will play in a very similar manner. A lot of what you know right now will still apply, and the playstyle will be transferable, but keep in mind, World did also make the weapons much more fluid, and it also introduced some new moves, so some of the stuff that you can do in World will not be present in GU. However, while that may sound like a step backwards, what you instead gain are styles and arts. In Generations Ultimate, you have access to 6 different hunting styles: Guild, Striker, Adept, Aerial, Valor, and Alchemy. I've done a video going over the differences, so I'll link that down below if you guys want to learn more, but styles can be changed back at the base in the same way you'd swap armor and weapons, and each style allows you to play a weapon in a very different way. So with 14 weapons and 6 styles, that's essentially 84 different playstyles. But on top of that, you also have hunter arts, and you can see these as special or super moves for a weapon. Moves you can activate when you build up enough meter, and some of these are really, really cool. So yes, you might have lost some of what you enjoyed about a particular weapon in World, but what you've gained is a ton more gameplay options. Something else to keep in mind is your sharpness meter. In World, it's a physical gauge that gradually depletes to give you a visual representation of how much you have left till you drop down to the lower tier of sharpness. But in GU, that's not a thing. It'll remain one colour until your weapon blunts, and then it'll go down to the next tier. Essentially, on and off, more binary. It's not exactly difficult to deal with. I mean, when you see your weapon blunts, you just sharpen it, simple as. But if you're someone that monitors sharpness and sharpens before it drops, then you might have some adjusting to do. And then finally, for the last point, more cats. In World, you have your Palico companion that you can make at the beginning of the game, and that's it. He's your only companion. An important one, sure, but he's your one and only. In GU, there are tons of cats. You still make your cat to begin with, but once that's done, that's not the end. You can buy more cats from the cat lady in the village, you can swap which cats you want to take on quests with you, and you can also bring 2 with you instead of 1. Cats have different stats and skills. That's not something I'll be going into detail on in this video, that's definitely a topic for another day, but there's value in having many cats. They also factor into your farm, you'll use them to farm items for you, and on top of that, you can also play as a cat too in what's known as Prowler mode, so this is essentially your 15th weapon. Prowlers are great and can be just as viable as any weapon if used correctly, so as you can see, there'll be great value in collecting lots of cats as you progress through the game, especially if you want the best possible cat team. But that, my friends, is pretty much it. Now, there's a ton more tiny, subtle differences here and there, and there'll be things that you'll get used to in time, but at least with this video, you now have a much better idea as to what you can expect when going into Generations Ultimate this month. If World was your first Monster Hunter game, know that Generations is different, yet familiar, and it's a fantastic game in its own right. So if you like hunting monsters, and you loved World, then I look forward to seeing you in GU. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to check out some more awesome stuff from us here at Arekkz Gaming, then you should definitely try to catch TwoSixNine and Paradise Central streaming 6 days a week. You can find a link to the multi-stream in the description box down below. They play a wide range of games, and what's more, we also have the endgame store. By watching their streams, you earn currency, and you can redeem that currency on the endgame store for really cool prizes. Those can range from things like games, comics, and figures, all the way up to controllers, capture cards, and even consoles. So definitely drop by and become part of the community. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, then make sure you're subscribed and be sure to click on that little bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss our next upload. You can watch more videos by clicking on the options here, but once again, thanks very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.